Is Hendon Hooker injured? More thoughts on the NCAA punishment or from that notice of allegation for Tennessee and short yardage situations. These are only a couple of the questions that we're going to get answered here today on Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into it. This is your Tuesday Locked On Vols, and I'm your host, Derrick Kane. So glad to have you guys with us here today. And for making Locked On Vols your first listen on YouTube, it's there every single day. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow along on the YouTube page. Really do appreciate that. And today, it is Twitter Tuesday. We're going to get into all of your questions here in segments 1 and 2, and then my conversation with former Tennessee two-time offensive coordinator, Ole Miss head coach, Duke head coach, and now advisor to Greg Sankey in terms of football relations, David Cutcliffe from SEC Media Days. That's coming up here on today's show. I'm your host, Derrick Kane. You can find this podcast on Twitter at _Kaner and at Locked On Vols. And like I said, thank you so much for following along and joining me today. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is your mailbag edition, Twitter Tuesday of the show. The first one we'll get into is K. Wayne 1800. During media days, Hooker said that he didn't get to compete at the Manning Academy like he wanted to because he was dealing with some injuries. Do you know what kind of injury this is? And if it is something that might linger into fall camp? Also, what is the issue with Brew McCoy? Is Tennessee waiting on the NCAA clearance, or is it something to do with UCA giving clearance, or is it some kind of legal issue from last year? How confident are you that he will get to play this year? Well, first on Brew McCoy, I know that Tennessee's confident. I know that Tennessee believes he will get eligible. It's just a matter of time before essentially those I's are dotted, those T's are crossed. But, to the point now, he is not eligible. And Josh Hypel was asked about it at SEC Media Days, and he said that he's got one more hurdle to cross. Camp starts in the matter of a week. Of course, you can practice and all that type of stuff and, be out there and do every single thing. But he's got to get clear before that first game. So, in short, Tennessee believes that it will not be an issue. But until those T's are crossed and those I's are dotted, essentially, he is not eligible to play. So we'll have to keep monitoring that. But the thought process is that will not be an issue and he'll be okay. As far as Hendon Hooker, I've asked around a couple of different people, and he's not hurt from what I've been told. Whatever it was, whatever it was that kept him out of the Manning Passing Academy, probably just something proactive, or probably something just that was minor, and he didn't want to tweak it or anything. Precautionary is the word I'm looking for. So, plus he was at SEC Media Days. I mean, if he had an injury, they wouldn't have taken him to SEC Media Days. So, I wouldn't worry about that one right there. Appreciate that, K. Wayne. Let's go now to Trevor. What has been the worst and the best thing to happen to Tennessee football in the past 10 years? This is a really good question. Let me ponder on it as I take a sip of this coffee to help my throat that's a little scratchy. The best thing that's happened to Tennessee football in the last 10 years? Probably Joshua Dobbs, because of what Tennessee accomplished when he was here. Had a couple of good seasons, beat Florida, beat Georgia twice in the same year. I recognize still disappointing seasons, but climbed into the top 10 twice, or a couple of times whenever he was here. And plus, he's the quarterback. Excuse me, guys. He's a quarterback, and Tennessee struggled for so long really struggled in not having a quarterback after he left. So I would say probably Joshua Dobbs would be the answer there. Could turn out to be Danny White being the athletics director, or even Josh Hypel being the head coach. But for right now, I'll say Josh Dobbs. And the worst thing that's ever happened in Tennessee in the last 10 years, what year was Derek Dooley wasn't hired in the last 10 years, but he would have probably been my answer. But it's got to be Pruitt, right? It's got to be Pruitt because of everything that happened, not winning a whole lot of games, plus, with the investigation, being fired and all that, where Tennessee is right now. It would have to be Jeremy Pruitt being hired as head coach. In turn, you could turn that around and say Philip Fulmer being athletics director. It's how much you want to kind of dive down into it. But I won't say that, because Tennessee, from a all sports perspective, was pretty solid still when Philip Fulmer was here. Not like he hired all of them, but you know what I'm trying to say. So I'll say Josh Dobbs on one end. I'll say Jeremy Pruitt on the other. We will go to Braden. Braden says, do you think we need to look towards the front seven getting to the passer more often than shifting all the worries and the blame to the defense or of the defense to the secondary. I do apologize, guys. My voice has been scratchy all day long. I'm trying to battle through it. It was a little scratchy on yesterday's show, but coffee really, really something hot. I don't have any hot tea here, but I've got some coffee, so that's kind of helped me out a little bit. Um, it's all tied in, man. And I try to be so fair whenever I discuss a shortcoming for Tennessee. You know, like if a quarterback's struggling, how's the offensive line doing? If a wide receiver's struggling, what about the timing with the quarterback? And that's the same with the defensive backs. The defensive backs struggled, in my opinion, last year because they lacked from depth and they lacked from essentially being able to cover an awful lot in man coverage because they were put out to dry. The front four wasn't getting to the passer a lot of times, meaning you have to bring somebody from the second level, meaning you have to run man-to-man coverage in the back end. It's really tiresome from a group that has no depth and lacks a little bit of talent in that regard to do all those things. So getting to the passer absolutely is the number one key to playing defense. Being able to affect the passer, being able to consistently rush with your four mans up there, and that's why you hope that Tyler Barron on one side and Byron Young on the other can really kind of bring it for Tennessee this year. So we'll have to see, but absolutely the conversation is all tied in. The better rush you have for the four up front without having to bring more, then you can play zone. You can mix some things up, disguise some things in the back end, and that all kind of helps. We'll go next to Rolene, and Rolene wants to know, what impact do you think D. Williams could have for this upcoming season? A really good question. I think back in spring practice, you thought that he could really try to work himself in to the the top two on the depth chart at cornerback. I think he was a little lost back in spring. I think that he was, coming up from junior college at the SEC ball, even though it was spring practice, it's probably a whole lot faster, more consistent, going up against better players. There's some great players in JUCO, but overall, the quality of the depth in your program is not even a contest in terms of a junior college to a Southeastern Conference team. So I think he was just trying to get his bearings in spring. We'll see. I think this will be a big fall camp for him. What's an impact that he can have? Can he, crack the four deep at that position in terms of being one of the top four guys? Can he push somebody up there? If D. Williams can come along at cornerback, then a guy like Christian Charles can go back to safety potentially. So we'll have to see. But the obvious and the most pressing way I think that D. Williams can implement himself as being a factor on this team would be as a returner on special teams. One of the better returners in all of junior college over his career. He returned 7 kicks for touchdowns. That was massive. In Tennessee, no Bayless Jones. Bayless Jones on to the Chicago Bears. Tennessee is going to need a returner, both punt and kickoffs. And so we'll have to see exactly if D. Williams can do that. So I would say special teams first as a returner, and then we'll have to see what he can bring in terms of being a cornerback for this team. And lastly, we will go to Ray. Ray wrote to me last week, essentially, and I forgot to put it in last week's Twitter Tuesday, so I apologize for that. But he writes, originally from Nashville, I now live outside of Atlanta. So Locked On Vols is one of my favorite Tennessee outlets. I appreciate that. I get my fix down here every single day in Dogs Country. Anyway, I just want to share a cool experience that I had while listening to your podcast when you were going over the new commit Jeremiah Thielander. You noted that he was out of Gainesville High School. I happen to be working on the Gainesville High School field house because we are building a new addition to that school. Shortly after one of the coaches came out to do ice pass with one of the players, I congratulated the coach on having a new SEC commit. He sensed the Vol fan in me and actually had the opportunity to meet Jeremiah. It was a great moment as a Vols fan, especially a Vols fan in Georgia. Let me tell you, Jeremiah looked like a grown man at 18 years old. Respectable guy. I offered my congratulations and support, and we shared a few words. We shook hands, and I told him he needed to help me out with some wins because I'm surrounded by dog fans down here. He was all about it and excited. Thought you would appreciate that. Really do appreciate that, Ray. That's awesome. What a cool story. Thank you so much for sharing. The beautiful thing about a podcast, I love radio, but a podcast can be listened anywhere around the world, and really cool experiences like that, getting to meet a Tennessee football commit. All right, we're going to get back into some Twitter Tuesdays. Thank God I have an interview coming up that I've already taped in segment 3 because my voice is killing me today. My throat's killing me. I so apologize. I'm trying to edit out all my coughing. If a couple of them are left in here, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm sorry. But first, before we get into more of your Twitter Tuesday questions, let me tell you about my friends over at Built Bar. For the people who invested heavily in tasting, comes the latest gifts to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar. But guess what? Your friends at Built Bar have given you the coconut brownie chunk, the Puffs treatment. That's right, the coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love, and a delicious chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate is the fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen right now. They are so good for you. Low in calorie, low in sugar, high in protein, and so delicious. The coconut brownie chunk puffs are only here for a limited time. So you need to go to built.com right now. Make sure you don't miss out. They are going fast. So because they're so amazing, again, you don't want to miss out. All the Built Bars are made with some proteins that absorbs more efficiently while you sleep. It provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes so good and is so good for you. So right now, go to built.com, use that promo code LOG15, and you're going to get 15% off your order that could include coconut brownie chunk puffs. That's promo code LOG15 for 15% off. That's all at built.com. Welcome back into your mailbag edition of Locked On Vols here on this Tuesday. I'm your host, Derrick Kane. Really appreciate you guys for hanging out with me today, answering your questions here in segment 2. We did it in segment 1. And then don't forget my interview from SEC Football Media Days with David Cutcliffe coming up in segment number 3. We go back to the Twitters, the DMs, always the Volin, chimes in. And he's wanting to basically know the difference in the Knoxville NIL new deal that's kind of started up over the weekend. I'm sure you guys probably saw that. The difference between that one and, of course, what Spire's doing over at Spire Sports. Basically, long story short, the difference from what I've gathered, Spire is a collective. Okay, there's no, team sharing, type of situations over at Spire. It's individual, and it goes on the individual player. What's happening over here with the Knoxville NIL club is pretty much the entire football team, 105 players of the football team, walk-ons included, can benefit. So say if fans donate, 10,000 or whatever the cutoff may be, then all the players who are attached to it will split that money. Also, since it's ran by someone else that's kind of started a portion of the proceeds will go to those type of people as well. So basically, it's kind of like a corporate level. You have corporate, then you have all these different affiliates. That's kind of what the Knoxville NIL thing is. I'm not telling you which one's better to spend to. That's not my place. Everybody can do whatever they want to with their money, but it's another opportunity for student athletes to profit off their name, image, and likeness. But for the Knoxville NIL club, the thing that just started out and all the players were tweeting and posting about over the weekend, that is for basically the whole team. Whereas what Spire is doing, it's individual deals for players and those type of deals to prospect or to cash in on their name, image, and likeness. So kind of hope that that's a little bit kind of what you were looking for. If not, I do apologize, but those are the big differences there. We'll continue on here on Twitter Tuesday. We'll go to my bookmarks here. And Tyler wants to know, let's go with baseball. We just watched our entire starting lineup get drafted, which is great PR. But what kind of expectations can we have going into next season, losing that much talent? Great question. And I think that is a very, when you build, it's why you build a program, right? Tony Vitello lost. We went into this past season talking about gosh, I forgot his name. The guy that played third base, who was fantastic. Rucker, Liam Spence was gone. Max Ferguson was gone. A lot of these guys that meant so much to the team last year were gone, and the infield in particular. And we were saying, how is Tennessee going to, overcome that with the lineup? Well, they had great starting pitching, and then you became to know, Jarrell Ortega broke out. You had Jared Dickey play a big spots early in the season at first base DH and then in left field. You had some of these upperclassmen step up. Of course, you still had Jordan Bagg, Drew Gilbert, Evan Russell, and all them, but you had some Christian Moore step up and play big. Blake Burke play big over at first base. And so with a program, you develop the right way, you have guys step up. And I think that's going to be the case for Tennessee this year. It's got a couple of transfers, in particular, a really nice transfer at shortstop that's, going to be a really nice player for you. But you'll see more at-bats this year from Christian Moore. You'll see more at-bats this year from Blake Burke. Jared Dickey will be healthy. You got to find a catcher. But I think the expectations going into this next season, what Tennessee did in the regular season last year is going to be tough to do in terms of a program record wins, that 23-game win streak, whatever the case may be. And that's going to be tough to duplicate. But going in there with the contention to win the SEC East, to win the SEC overall, and to be playing in big-time series, that's what the expectation should be for Tony Vitello's club, because he's proven he can do that consistently during his time. So it's more of a plug and play, a regroup instead of a rebuild. Also, you're bringing back three incredible pitchers that you're going to be, doing okay with. You have, Burns, you have Dolander coming back, you have, oh my gosh, Drew Beam coming back. That 1-2-3 punch. I think you're going to be just fine. So Tyler, appreciate it there. We'll go to Brad. Is UT trying to flip any running backs right now? We'll know as time goes on. Okay. Recruiting's a long time. We are just in the back half of July right now. So remember, Justin Williams-Thomas, Tennessee was not recruiting at this time last year. Ultimately got him to flip from West Virginia and then ended up signing him. So, we'll have to see. Roderick Robinson, the running back that Tennessee had on official visit back in June or at the end of May, actually. And he came up and he committed to UCLA in the month of June, or maybe it was July, regardless. And then the news kind of broke that that the Big Ten was taking UCLA and USC to the Big Ten. And so it appears that a lot of those recruits and all of those prospects, at least the talk is, some of those guys are not happy about it. And so Robinson might be in that group as well. So we'll have to see. But Tennessee is going to continue to recruit him and continue to recruit the running back position as we move on towards November. So a good question there. Chris will chime in. What does Tennessee need to do better in short yardage situations, and also the red zone efficiency? Quarterback run play needs to be a bigger factor in there. Play action with the quarterback. Hendon Hooker utilized that. I think Jalen Wright's gained a lot of weight. I think Jabari Small's gained a little bit of weight. That should help with that. But overall, short yardage, I just think it's kind of a mindset, right? You've got to be able to go up and get that 1 yard. You've got to be able to go up and get that half a yard. Tennessee struggled with that in the Music City Bowl, against Pittsburgh, against Ole Miss at times. One of the poorest parts of their offense, which was a very good offense. So I would incorporate the quarterback run a little bit more in those situations. For goodness sake, go under center a little bit. I don't know, utilize the tight ends a little bit more. Those are some things that I would say you kind of start off with. So we'll see what Tennessee wants to do, but you're right. That is a point of emphasis for this team moving forward. This team has got to get better in short yardage situations. Just a couple more. We'll go on now to Andrew. Oh, Andrew actually wanted to know about Hendon Hooker as well. We already kind of answered that from the Manning Passing Academy. We'll go to Tony. Of all the college programs who have walked down the road of NCAA investigations, which ones have been similar to UT and what was their punishment? Everything's a little bit different. So especially now with name, image, and likeness and everything, of course, that's not, this punishment is going back before those rules were in place. But I remember Ole Miss, getting a couple of postseason bowl bans and stuff after they did all their homework, worked with the NCAA, and then they kind of crushed them. Then you've seen Kansas kind of go on as business as usual, win a national championship, and nothing's going to happen there. You've seen, with some other programs as well. I'm not good at the comparison game. I do apologize, but again, as we spoke on yesterday with the notice of allegations and all that, I think Tennessee, the worst of what's happened to Tennessee is already behind itself. And so we'll have to see here in about 60 days or whatever, whenever Tennessee responds to it and then NCAA responds back, exactly what those punishments might be. But I'm really bad at the comparison game. I guess I would say Ole Miss, whenever they had to kind of fire their coach and they had an interim in there. And ultimately it wasn't, it didn't turn out well for Ole Miss because they played ball with them. Oklahoma State kind of comes to mind. They played ball with the NCAA, and then NCAA wasn't, very gracious with them. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Tennessee, but those are kind of comparable here. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what the ending resolution is, which I've been consistent, since all this week in saying that I don't think it will be all that bad. We will finish up here with, let's see here. We'll finish up with Bruce on the loose. Just give me 1 second to pull it up here. Bruce on the loose wants to know, I was wondering, is the team divided up about 50-50 offense defense, or is it more one-sided? Would it make sense to grab a couple of extra defensive guys for the depth since you're going so fast on offense? Yeah, it would. And, to kind of, break it down a little bit, each position's a little bit different. So like in quarterbacks, you want to have 3 to 4 scholarship quarterbacks on your roster. You want to have at least 3 scholarship quarterbacks on your roster. Running backs, you got to have a lot. offensive linemen, you want to have depth, but you want to have more defensive linemen than offensive linemen. You want to have a lot of defensive backs who can play. So kind of depends on the position in itself. But and linebackers as well. All your linebackers play special teams, and so you need a whole lot there. I would say that I wouldn't say it's a true 50-50, probably more defense than offense, to be completely honest. But you have 85 scholarships. So you're looking at pushing about 40-ish, for each side, and then kind of giving a couple for special teams as well. So with this offense, I would agree. I would take a couple more defenders because you go so fast, you play so many snaps that it would make a whole lot of sense. I'm not sure if that's exactly what Tennessee does, but Tennessee's trying to have a whole lot of defensive linemen because that's a rotatable position. Defensive backs, as you play 5 at one time. And that's changed in the last 10 years, right? Last 10, 15 years. You didn't used to play 5 defensive backs unless it was a, nickel personnel. But now that's your base, right? 4-2-5 is kind of a base now in college football, really, and in the NFL as well. So it might be shifting a little bit more towards defense because it's rotational, because the same 5 offensive linemen play, your top wide receivers play, your top 2-3 running backs play, and then, one quarterback. Whereas on defense, you're always changing in and out. So I would say a little bit more defense than anything, but that has changed here in the last couple of years. All right, guys. Again, I apologize for my voice. It has been just brutal today. When you're in this business, it happens sometimes. So hopefully tomorrow will be a little bit better day when I go to record. Appreciate you guys for toughing it out. We will get to my interview with David Cutcliffe, and it's a really good one. I'm excited about that one. So when we come back, my conversation with former Tennessee offensive coordinator, former Power 5 head football coach in the SEC and in the ACC, David Cutcliffe. That and more coming up next here on Locked On Vols. Josh Hypel. I'm sure you've answered this question numerous times. What's your relationship with him or past relationship with him, and how do you think he's doing so far at Tennessee with obviously a big year upcoming?
Well, I coached against him in the last game of the century. He was a quarterback at Oklahoma, and we beat them in the Independence Bowl, and then they proceeded to win the national championship the next year. He's a heck of a player. So that was my first exposure to him, but we kicked a field goal with 3 seconds left as time ran out, beat them 27-25, huge win for us at Ole Miss. And then when he was at Central Florida, I went down to watch spring practice. And Tennessee people will appreciate this. Never dawned in my mind he might end up at Tennessee, but just evaluating a young coach, I was so impressed as an offensive head coach that he committed as much of his time in practice to the kicking game, which was always been important to me. I mean, that was instilled in me as young, but also re-established working for Coach Majors at Tennessee. And then he let his defense be very aggressive and very physical against his offense. I did the quotation his. And so I thought to myself, they're going to be really successful. He understands what you got to do to win. He's not just down here playing fast tempo offense, calling plays. There were a lot of discipline demands, and they were a very conditioned team.
Oh, yeah, they got to be.
Obvious. So I thought, this guy's going to be really good. And, I talked, because I know the White family so well, talked off and on with Danny, and Danny knew.
Everybody listening, Danny's father was
Kevin White.
20-year run at Duke as athletics director?
No, he was there 13 years, but prior to that, Notre Dame.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
One of the most respected athletics administrators ever.
And just recently retired.
Yes, and Danny and I had conversations about different coaches, and I think he did the right thing. He went through the list. He went through a lot of interviews, and he didn't find anybody better than Josh Hypel for the job. And I thought they had a terrific year a year ago under the circumstances, and I think they can have a terrific year this year. And I think he's a really good man. I had good conversations with him in between jobs about a lot of different things, but he's a coach's son. It's in his blood. He cares a lot about his players. He cares a lot about the integrity of the program, the value system of the program. So you got a really good man you need to get behind leading your program.
You know, it's funny, too. It's very interesting. I learned this at last year's media days. His father coached on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
And Josh grew up playing quarterback, obviously, and now being this offensive coach. I got so many questions, and I can't keep you all day, but this offense, it's unique, the pace and everything. If you study Tennessee, which I'm sure you'll get to see a little bit more this year now that you're not coaching, off to great starts, obviously. And that's no shock because you kind of shocked the defense a little bit.
Sure.
Second quarter, a little bit of a lull. But overall, very successful year one of the offense. Will defenses start catching up year two in the SEC? And if so, how do you play that game?
No, I don't think they will.
Okay.
Their tempo is real.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now it is very difficult to simulate that in a practice for a defense. That's why the fast starts.
Yeah.
As a game settles in, it's no different than playing the old wishbone or the triple option teams. You struggle. Players get a little bit of the rhythm during the game, and that can happen to any style of offense. But with the experience that your quarterback's gotten, and if you watch them at Central Florida, it took off as the quarterback became more comfortable because tempo's not easy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of communication, a lot of work, a lot of fast thinking. So even though it may be hard to simulate for a defense playing against you, you got to create a game-like atmosphere at practice, spring ball, and I think they're going to get better as they go. Honest with you.
Obviously, a quarterback's coach, and you've coached some pretty good quarterbacks in your day, a couple Hall of Famers. But what do you like about Hendon Hooker? And I'm sure you've met and talked with him probably at the Manning Passing Academy over the years maybe. What do you like about him and what he brings to the table for Tennessee?
Well, I tried to recruit Hendon at Duke out of high school. He's from Greensboro, right there. I was disappointed when he signed with Virginia Tech, but I thought, this guy is long, and sometimes long leads to not being quite fast, twitch enough, tight enough motion. Accuracy can get away from you a little bit if you get what I call really elongated in your motion. And I think he got better under Coach Hypel. I think he got better as the year went along because he does all the little things right. He's really athletic, but he's not depending upon athleticism. He's playing quarterback.
Yeah.
But when he needs it, he can beat you he can make plays, So I like him. I think he's going to be much more comfortable. I know his high school coaches and people, he's always been highly considered with character and the right type young man, and that'll go a long way. So I'm excited to watch him play this year.
Two more questions for you, Coach, and offensive coach, but you've been a head coach for a long time. With an offense like this that goes at such a fast pace, I think they were running a little over 3 plays a minute last year, which was just incredible. It's tough on your defense. Tennessee's defense played 102 snaps against Ole Miss, played 93 snaps against Kentucky. How do you – does that hurt in recruiting? How do you coach up your coaches for that? I guess how do you supplement that? Because it's a tall task to play defense in this system.
No question, and it's no different than what Paul Johnson was faced with the other way around. To bring a defense in on an option team, that's who they have to practice against, and they're going to get beat up, et cetera, et cetera. Well, defensively, the more highly conditioned you are, the better chance you have to play really good defense.
Yeah.
Defense is reactionary, where you have to play and then react. And offense is just one force.
Yeah.
So I think it's how you package it and put it to them. What a great advantage Tennessee's defense has, being the most conditioned defense in the country.
Yeah.
You got no choice, right?
You'll get smoked every day in practice if you don't.
And then if somebody goes slower than your own offense, now you're getting to look at people. Let's study formations. Let's study tendencies. You can turn anything you want to into a disadvantage, or you can choose to make it an advantage. My choice has been always to make it an advantage.
Really, really awesome stuff there from David Cutcliffe. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I really tried to ask him a whole lot about Tennessee and Josh Hypel and the offense and recruiting defenders. If he was, Tennessee's head coach running that offense, it's a guy that has coached a lot of good football players, including, both Peyton and Eli Manning. And so not many people who are respected more in football circles than David Cutcliffe. So it was really cool to him. It was really cool to catch up with him last week in Atlanta at SEC Media Day. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. All right, that's going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. We'll be back tomorrow. My voice will be better. I promise you that. And we'll get down into it as we continue on with this week, recapping everything you want to know from the notice of allegations from SEC Football Media Days. We look forward to camp coming up starting on Sunday. Media Day is on Sunday for the University of Tennessee. A big recruiting weekend coming up this weekend as well. All that to look forward to as we continue on with this week. Don't forget to check out Locked On SEC. Make that your second listen behind Locked On Vols, which is your first listen each and every day. Host Chris Gordy. On yesterday's episode, he talked with Commissioner Greg Sankey. So that, a whole lot more, that's Locked On SEC. Your second listen behind Locked On Vols, your first listen each and every day. Please subscribe on YouTube, comment, rate 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, anything to help the algorithms. Guys, I appreciate it. We'll do it again on Monday. We'll do it again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody.